I don't talk trash on this channel. Well, at least not anymore I do, because I used to talk trash on this channel. But for those that are kind of newer to my channel, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a taste about how this channel used to go. This is triggering every NFL fan base for 2024. Now, if I do this video right, at the end of this video, you should be butthurt, or else I didn't do my job right. Also, I will be hitting below the belt, pulling absolutely no punches, and even my beloved Steelers will get it in this video, and they may just get it the hardest as well, as I know them all too well. So, if you're easily offended, I suggest that you click off of this video right now. Each team will get repeatedly pwned by me for about a minute or so, talking about some of the cringiest moments, worst moments, draft picks, etc. You know, stuff that'll get you pissed off, because that's the whole premise of this video. So, sit back, relax, enjoy me roasting your rival, and hate me for roasting your team. This is triggering every NFL fan base. Arizona. Okay, so I'll be short here. You are the worst franchise in NFL history. Your front office has to beg Kyler Murray to study because he doesn't even want to be great himself and can't stop playing his Xbox. And he's also not even tall enough to go on rides at Kennywood. You have a worse identity crisis than Caitlyn Jenner with all the moves that you've made from city to city because you're not even popular nor good enough to play in those cities. Despite being in the league for over 100 years, you have nothing to show for it except for a couple of Mickey Mouse rings, one of which was handed to you because your opponent cheated, and the other one happening all the way back in 1947, which barely anyone alive even remembers or even cares about. Larry Fitzgerald is the only memorable player that you've ever produced in your franchise, and even then he was just an overrated stat patter. Aside from Super Bowl 43, where you blew a fourth quarter lead against us in the final moments, the only time that you were really relevant was 2015, and you got beat so bad in the NFC Championship, you'd have thought it was a match between Fitz and his baby mama. Guess you didn't know that about him, did you? Simply put, your franchise has been about as bad as this LA Chargers. Imagine missing the playoffs because you couldn't tie with the Raiders. The frickin' Raiders of all teams. And speaking of that, remember when they dropped 63 on you on national TV too? Wow, you drafted this idiot while passed on this guy, and Drew Brees and Eli Manning didn't even want to play for you. So that's what, 5 rings that you've pissed down the drain right there? Hey, remember in 2010 when you had both the best offense and defense and didn't even sniff the playoffs? You moved from a city that actually is a good football market in San Diego to a city that doesn't give a crap about football and literally no one cheers for you because your home stadium always looks like Manti Te'o girlfriend family reunions. You'll undoubtedly waste Justin Herbert's career just like you did with Phillip Rivers and Dan Fouts, because aside from blowing fourth quarter leads, that's what your franchise is known for. Hell, the Chargers are already wasting Justin Herbert, as he's only been to the playoffs one time in his entire career and has a losing record all time. And the one time that he did go to the playoffs, they immediately blew a 27-0 lead for him. Way to go. And also, you got to pay rent to the Rams in that beautiful stadium that you pay in. Congrats, you are the Clippers of the NFL. San Francisco. Before I hear all the deflections about how Colin Kaepernick was right to take a knee, let me remind you that you fumbled 2 Super Bowls to Mahomes worse than Roger Craig did right here. Only came away with 1 ring with those 90s loaded teams because you blew your chances harder than Aldon Smith did in the airport before he bombed out of San Francisco. You're 4-0 against Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs and won the last 6 playoff matchups against the Packers and still have less rings than them since 1995. Hey, remember when the Giants, no, not the city's baseball team who never won a ring with Baroid Bonds, but the football team came into your stadium and beat you as the first seed in 2011? How about when they denied you a three-peat in 1990 while squashing your frail system QB Joe Montana right here in this blowout L to them? So that begs the question, is Brock Purdy actually good, or is he a product of Kyle Shanahan, who is responsible for 3 blown Super Bowls? I'll close it here with sticking it to you like Jerry Rice did to the footballs that you're the most all-or-nothing team ever, looking like either a legit Super Bowl contender or absolute shit with no in-between for the last decade and a half or so, and that you lost a Super Bowl to the frickin' Ravens, where you made the other Joe look like a reincarnation of the fake GOAT. Speaking of shit, watch your step when you go to San Francisco. There's a good chance you may step in some. Los Angeles Rams. Like, wow, okay, just because you won the Super Bowl a couple years ago over one of my division rivals because you bought a championship team doesn't diminish the fact that you lost 2 Super Bowls to Tom Brady. One where you started the Pats dynasty and one where you continued it. How about 2007 to 2009 where you won only 6 games in a span of 3 seasons? There was Steve Smith doing this to you in the playoffs. Imagine leading the league in wins from 1973 to 78 and not even going to a Super Bowl, and then going to the Super Bowl a year later where you blew a 4th quarter lead to, guess who? The Steelers. And then decades later you traded Jerome Bettis to us on draft day. It's all good, there aren't any real Rams fans anyway. They're still in St. Louis and hate your ass. You're about as disloyal to them as Matthew Stafford's wife is to him. Carolina Panthers. Everyone loves Steve Smith even though he had serious little man syndrome and assaulted teammates, including one that got him arrested for it. How about 2001 when you won your first game of the season and promptly lost out? Luke Kuechly retired in his prime because he couldn't stay healthy. And then you had Cam Newton, who put up a great 2015 season that turned out to be a massive fluke, and he flat out quit on you in the Super Bowl before he revealed to be the most frail Superman of all time who can't decide on his gender. DJ Moore taking off his helmet in this clip might not trigger you anymore, but I know what will. John Casey kicking the ball out of bounds to cost you a Super Bowl. Bryce Young stinking up the joint, and him being probably just as tall as Kyler Murray. Denver. Hey Colorado, is your idea of winning a Super Bowl a giant gravity bong? It may as well be, since you thought Russell Wilson was going to lead you to the actual one when you haven't been there in 9 years. Bo Nix has bust written all over him because the Broncos haven't had a good QB since Peyton Manning was there, and before that you had John Elway, a guy whose teeth was so bad it made a Brit look like a regular dentist patient. And not before that, he got blown the F out in every single Super Bowl in the 80s. And he didn't even start performing like a Hall of Fame QB until he had a Hall of Fame running back, an elite O-line, a good set of receivers, and a Hall of Fame tight end around him at the same time. Not to mention his 2 Super Bowl winning teams cheated the salary cap. Then you had Bill Romanowski, a guy who spit in the face of opposing players' faces, turned out to be a massive racist POS after Carolina lost the Super Bowl to you, and roid raged his own players. What a class act he was. The Hail Marys happened to you. Tampa Bay. Starting your franchise 0-26 should be triggering enough, but let's go on further, shall we? You've hosted more Super Bowls than you've won, probably because you have the worst winning percentage in NFL history. Imagine having a losing season with Tom Brady as your quarterback and Antonio Brown flat out quitting on your team in the middle of a game. Okay, I guess that's kind of a dub, but still, talking about receivers, Mike Evans is still not better than Devontae Adams, and there was this little moment with Burt Emanuel right here. Oh, poor Tampa Bay. Attention Dolphins fans, could I just get 7 to 62 seconds of your time to talk about your team a little bit? Keep clinging on to 72. You played a Mickey Mouse schedule with less competition on a weaker schedule. Imagine tanking for not even getting the first overall pick, and you took Tua Noodle Arm, who can't even look good without Tyreek Hill at his disposal, and you'll undoubtedly waste him just like you did with Dan Marino. Doesn't even matter since Tua has more concussions than playoff wins. And you know what, Dolphins fans? It doesn't even matter what Tua does because your team has all these stars and all these good players and a respectable roster, and I still expect you to miss out on winning the division because you can't beat Josh Allen. And how much longer for the parade for the Miami Miracle? You didn't even win a game for the rest of the season and didn't even make the playoffs. Jacksonville, your fans dressed up as clowns in a home game one day and you hired Urban Meyer. I mean, really, that's all I gotta say about you, but I'll keep going just for the sake of it. Just move to London already. You're more appreciated there in your own city. Case in point, your public TV station issued an apology one time because they aired your game over the Manning Bowl, and you didn't even win that game either. How about 1999 when you went 14 Titans? Yes, 14-2 in the regular season, 2 losses to Tennessee. And then a third loss to Tennessee because you got crushed by them in the AFC Championship game. Wow, 3 losses in one season to the same opponent. 2017 was a great year for you, but you could have won the Super Bowl that year if you, I don't know, didn't pass on Aaron Donald and Mike Evans for Blake Bortles, who's not even on your team anymore. I'm just so sick and tired of the media giving Trevor Lawrence a pass for everything. He's nothing but a glorified pick machine who has a mediocre QB rating and is not an elite quarterback. Before that, you had Blaine Gabbert and Justin Blackmon, who was a stupid drunk drug abuser. You went from a huge divisional comeback to blowing the division in 1 year flat, and I think that's where I'll blow the whistle on you. Atlanta. Okay, so we all know about the big one here, but what about all these other blown leads right here, and including these playoff gems right here? 1981, you had a 24-10 lead on the Cowboys, which evaporated more quickly than dried rain on a sunny day on the sidewalk. 1983, not one but 2 blown leads on the Vikings with 2 big drives, one of which they drove the length of the field to come back on you because your defense collapsed harder than the Hindenburg. 2012, you had the best offense all season and you blew it to the 49ers just to fit the script well. How about Eugene Robinson soliciting a prostitute the night before your first Super Bowl and he was forced to return his Bart Starr Award? And speaking of Packer greats, you had Brett Favre in the palm of your hands only to let him walk away and curb stomp you in the playoffs in his MVP season on his way to becoming one of the best quarterbacks of all time. You drafted Michael Penix when you signed Kirk Cousins. Okay, I'm just delaying the inevitable at this point. You bums had a 28-3 lead in the Super Bowl and you blew it just because you couldn't run the ball and because you allowed Tom Brady to beat up on your defense like how Michael Vick beat up on those dogs. No one respects you, and that's what you'll always be remembered for, even if you win a Super Bowl. Chicago. The last time the Bears had a good quarterback, Hitler was still alive. This is how I know that Caleb Williams is going to be a massive bust, because it's illegal for the Bears to have a good quarterback. Spare me with the, "Oh, he's actually good, you're just a hater" song and dance routine, Bears fans. We literally heard this with Mitch Trubisky and Justin Fields. Are those two even on your team anymore? But hey, quarterbacks are no problem for your biggest rivals up north, Green Bay, who have consistently owned you since the 90s. You should have been a dynasty in the 80s, but were just a one-ring wonder that never got back to another Super Bowl until you started Rex Grossman in one 20 years later. Man, that's a double doink of ouch right there. Indianapolis. The only reason that there's even an NFL team in Indy is because your owner, who likes to party harder than Amanda Bynes, snuck out and moved the team to Indy from Baltimore at the last moment. You broke Peyton Manning's neck, broke Andrew Luck's will, and it looks like you'll be on your way to breaking Anthony Richardson's shoulders soon. There was Big Ben's tackle on you on this play that led to this failed kick by Mike Vanderjagt. And how about the onside kick in Super Bowl 44 against the New Orleans Saints? Probably because they actually know how to execute a trick play, unlike you guys who actually tried this failed 4th down right here. And after Andrew Luck quit on you, yes, I said quit, you became the used car lot of NFL quarterbacks, one of which you blew not only the biggest lead in the Super Bowl with another team, but now has the biggest blown lead in NFL history. That 33-0 lead deflated quicker than this game right here, New Orleans. Honestly, I'm over the Nola no-call BS, but you know who isn't? You. It was a mental backbreaker for you. You still cry about it like your current QB Derek Carr does at press conferences, and you'll never have a team of that caliber again because you wasted 4 chances to win another ring for Drew Brees with a playoff L to Kirk Cousins, and Brees having his worst performance ever against Tom Brady's team. Way to go, Drew. You grocery bag fans cried so hard over that moment that your tears not only put your city further below sea level than Katrina did, but the league changed the rules only for you to lose in the playoffs because of that rule. You'll think your QB is David Carr this season with how many sacks your O-line will give up. Your team needs to recharge their batteries for another playoff push like that. No, not the ones that Alvin Kamara got arrested for, but more power to get back to another Super Bowl. Much like the Bucs, your city has hosted more Super Bowls than you've won, and this February, you Saints fans will have to watch yet another team win a Lombardi in your stadium. You know what it'll take for Carr to lead you to another ring? A miracle. The Baltimore Ravens. Congrats, Lamar. It only took 6 years, but you now have as many playoff wins than you do positive COVID tests. Aw, you're mad, Raven fans. How about his stats against the Steelers? That's only the beginning of how I'll go Ray Lewis on you and dance on your graves like T.O. did, and how the punches I throw at you will be harder than the ones Ray Rice threw at his fiancée. Everyone loves Lamar's use of his legs, but what about your fans booing him for an entire drive, and your jackass tooth linebacker Suggs getting the boot from his own house by his own wife because of what a deadbeat father he is? What a fucking loser. You tinky-winky tuberculosis buzzards have the gall to laugh at us for being yellow, yet these used to be your colors. Imagine being a fan of a franchise who's named after a poem written by an alcoholic from Boston who slept with his 13-year-old cousin and died of tuberculosis. Disgusting. Kind of like how Lamar's 2 MVP seasons died of tuberculosis and had to watch Mahomes win the Super Bowl both times. You've been blessed with elite defenses for about 75% of your franchise's existence, and yet you still only have 2 rings. Probably because you let them slip through your fingers like Lee Evans and waste it with scrub QBs, one of which you traded up to draft for Kyle Bowler, and the Pats used that pick for Vince Wilfork. What a reach that was, but this reach still hurts more. Yeah, 3 playoff wins for us since our last Super Bowl appearance is pathetic, and yet you still have less playoff wins than us since 2015, and for good measure, 4th and 12. The New England Patriots. If Brady was still in the league and still your QB, my venom would be way higher. But still, you spoiled smoke and mirror massholes have had luck and bullshit spew out your asses for 20 years, and now you act like the most miserable fan base in the league. Tough shit. My oh my, how the tables have turned. You used to beat up on the AFC East, and now you're its bitch with absolutely no chance at all at doing anything. Not that you even care, because you're back to being the pitied organization you were in the 90s, who had no support and almost made you fuck off to St. Louis. A franchise who was on the brink of bankruptcy before your duck-faced prostitute soliciting owner bought the team. A team in the New England region no one gave a crap about until they saw they weren't hot garbage anymore and could actually sell out a home game. The only thing more embarrassing than these bandwagon Brady nut riders actually thinking Drake May and Gerard Mayo is the next Brady and Belichick is how they thought the same with Mac Jones. Worked out about as well as employing Matt Patricia and Joe Judge, Bill Belichick being a male cougar, and how they followed the golden boy down to Florida. If you mention any of this to them, they'll just cry like Brady and threaten your family online. Don't talk about the 85 team that got the ever-loving shit kicked out of them in the Super Bowl, or the 96 team that blew it to Green Bay. They couldn't name 3 players on those teams that they hit him in the face. Then there's that frail frat boy jock Gronk who followed Brady to his Super Bowl team, and the steroid-abusing Julian Edelman, the only player in NFL history who's simultaneously considered no weapons and a Hall of Fame wide receiver. For every miracle and gift that you were given that made Brady look like the GOAT, despite him playing like garbage in the playoffs, there is Von Miller flattening Brady, Ray Lewis murdering him, Nick Foles and Brandon Graham breaking your three-peat, this drop, the sheriff in 2 different unis, this blowout loss, Jacoby Myers, and getting derped by Eli twice in the Super Bowl. Hey, remember when Bill's old coordinator trolled you in Brady's last game ever in a Pats uniform? Or how about your tight end killing himself in jail because he was as guilty as your fraud, cheating organization and wanted out of a life sentence? Not exactly what his attorney meant when he told him to hang in there. Detroit, you may be sitting pretty now, Lions fans, but you're not safe from this video. You have only 3 playoff wins since 1957. And you were founded during the Great Depression, and how fitting is that, because depressing is the perfect word for your franchise. How about Dan Orlovsky running in the back of the end zone on this play right here? You had Matt Millen for the longest time. Your franchise sucks so badly your city couldn't even implode your stadium correctly. You wasted Barry Sanders and Megatron by not giving them any kind of help on offense. And now you're only known for losing on Thanksgiving. Even when you're good, you lose on Thanksgiving. You've been around for all 58 Super Bowls and never played in a single one, and you cling on to Stafford winning one like you guys won it. Like, wow, hang the banner right now. Oh, you already did. You hosted Super Bowl 40 for us. Thank you for giving us Jerome Bettis, by the way. And then there was 2024 when you had your best season in literal decades, where you blew the NFC Championship against the 49ers. There was this 2-point conversion fail against the Cowboys, and before that there was this playoff game against the Cowboys a decade earlier. And then how about the Green Bay Packers doing this not once but twice in your own stadium? Hey, I just listed 16 L's about your franchise, and we all know one season where you took 16 L's in one season. Minnesota Vikings. Congrats, Vikings fans. You're still the best franchise to never win a Super Bowl. Now, this offseason you've had alone is triggering enough for you guys, but I'll go even further than that. The Vikings are really only relevant once every few years, where they lose in the NFC Championship game by either getting their hearts broken or getting absolutely annihilated. Hey, those are 4 pretty bad NFC Championship losses right there, but you also have 4 Super Bowl L's to go on top of that as well. The only time this decade the Vikings have been relevant is 2022, when they lost a playoff game to Daniel Jones. You play in the Twin Cities like the twin missed kicks of Gary Anderson and Blair Walsh still haunt you in your sleep. You drafted Christian Ponder of all quarterbacks. AP was the best player that you've had in decades, and he beat the crap out of his infant kid like he was an animal. The Hail Mary exists because of you. You had possibly the best offense of all time in 1998 with a 15-1 season, and you wasted it and didn't even go to the Super Bowl. And speaking of that, Randy Moss is not better than Jerry Rice. How about starting 5-0 in 2016 and missing the playoffs? Or how about starting 6-0 in 2003 and also missing the playoffs because you couldn't beat the trash Cardinals on the final day of the season? Boy, you sure let 3 potential Lombardis for your franchise in the 90s walk, but you didn't let Herschel walk with this trade right here. And despite having the best radio announcer of all time in Paul Allen, there's still this hilarious radio call right here.
High snap, put down, Joseph, come on! It is gone! No, he missed it! Are you kidding me? He missed it right.
The Kansas City Chiefs. Sure, you're the new dynasty, and I have nothing against longtime diehard Chiefs fans who had to endure the playoff win drought, the Schottenheimer letdowns, wasting Tony Gonzalez's entire career and him trying to win a ring in Atlanta of all cities, and constantly being owned by the Broncos. But you Gen Z and Gen Alpha Trust Fund baby Mahomes bandy-ass Chiefs fans I have zero respect for and will feel my full wrath at full force. Your bandwagon is almost as big as Andy Reid's belly, and he didn't even deserve any of those 3 Super Bowl MVPs. I know probably everything I'm saying to you is going wide left, but you still collapsed on a 38-10 lead against the Colts, coughed up a hairball against the Titans, and Mahomes choked at home against the Bengals when his defense got 7 sacks on Joe Burrow. Mahomes is also a weirdo who puts ketchup on his steak. Bet he eats it well done and doesn't even use Heinz ketchup too. He may be a winner on the field, but he starts the season off every year with 2 L's with his wife and brother. Now that I think about it, is he really the GOAT, or just a product of Reid's offense who had Chad Henne win you 2 playoff games because if Jimmy G didn't suck, the Eagles could get a stop on you, and if Taylor Swift didn't care about Travis Kelce, Mahomes still has 0 rings. Cry me a trail of tears, Chiefs fans. You can clearly see I'm not on your side here, neither is D Ford. Las Vegas Raiders. You know, I'm pretty amazed that Raider fans are as loyal as they are, because your franchise has shown several times that they really don't care about you. You're more known for employing criminals than you are good players. The Immaculate Reception happened to you, of all franchises, and you'll always be second fiddle to the Steelers when it comes to great 70s teams. Haven't won a Super Bowl since 1983, and the only time that you've made it back there since then, you got your doors blown off by your former head coach. And years later, he showed what a racist POS he was with all them emails because he didn't know that they last forever. And speaking of that, you've only made the playoffs 2 other times since then, one of which including a playoff loss to Brock Osweiler. And then, of course, there's this little softy right here. All you Raider fans that paint your face with black and silver makeup are pathetic losers. Grow up. You won't be winning anything anyway with Mahomes in your division for the next 15 years or so. New York Giants. Let me sneak, no, not in that way, but sneak this clip in to start things off.
The New York Giants select Daniel Jones.
Oh my God!
Yeah, that reach in the first round is about as bad as your season opener last year, and Joe Judge challenging a scoring play. Then there's your last QB. Eli is a bum, a fraud who's not worthy of the Hall of Fame, and his entire legacy is built off of his defense having 2 dominant runs in 2007 and 2011. He's as fraudulent as your team who doesn't even play in the city that your team name says you do. Let's see, what else? Oh yeah, there's Plaxico Burress shooting himself in the foot. Dave Brown was your quarterback in the 90s. You had Ray Hanley as your head coach. This blown game against the 49ers in the playoffs. LT loved cocaine. And while I do applaud you for beating the Pats twice, especially in 2007, I also don't forget that you also lost a Super Bowl to the frickin' Ravens, for crying out loud. So 2 can play at that game, Giants fans. Time to give you some PTSD, which for you stands for Philadelphia Traumatic Stress Disorder. Enjoy, Giants fans. Let's stay in Jersey and talk about the Jets right here. It's kind of hard to offend this fan base since they get off on pain, but I'll do my best. Joe Namath was an overrated slob who doesn't deserve the Hall of Fame, and you haven't done a damn thing since he guaranteed a Super Bowl win. You took one Packer great for his retirement tour and snapped an 8-3 record, and then took another Packer great and snapped his ankle in the first game. Before you blew back-to-back AFC championships with Rex Ryan, you had both Parcells and Belichick and won jack squat, not before Belichick ditched you after 1 day of hiring him. He then went to your rivals and you promptly got bent over by them for 20 years and were as ghost as the ones that Sam Darnold saw on Monday Night Football. Oh, don't worry, it gets worse, Jets fans. Mo Lewis assassinating Drew Bledsoe that kickstarted their dynasty, and everyone hates you for it. Back to Rodgers for a bit. Do you even realize the last time that he made the Super Bowl was the last time that you even made the playoffs? If you blow it with Rodgers again, that'll be the second biggest butt fumble that your franchise has had since, well, the OG one. Buffalo, you drunk table smashing redneck seriously thought that 13 seconds wasn't enough time? The Music City Miracle happened to you, of all franchises. You dealt with the Pats dynasty for 20 years, and since that ended, you are now just a glorified speed bump on the road for Kansas City to win more Super Bowls. And your QB history is almost as bad as the Browns, which includes having Nathan Petermeme, who was just the opposing defense's 12th man, and now you got Mitch Kissintitty to back up Josh Allen, the most overrated quarterback in the NFL. This wide right ought to trigger you. Oh no, I was actually talking about this one right here. And how about going 14-0 against the NFC from 1990 to 93 in the regular season, and yet couldn't win a single Super Bowl in 4 straight tries? Yikes. Cincinnati, Joe Burrow moans when he wipes and sits to pee. Burrow is the type of guy to brag about beating a guy in a wheelchair race. You guys get my drift here? Burrow and Bengals fans in general are spineless pussies who have never had real success. If Burrow had to play the Steelers in the Steel Curtain era or the teams from 2004 to 2011, he'd have retired at halftime. I'm really surprised your tone-deaf owner hasn't stood trial for attempted murder of him by now because his O-line makes turnstiles look revolutionary. Oh wait, that goes to T. Higgins for this. So much more for the Bengals, like Andy Dalton wasting solid teams in the 2010s. AJ Green was made of glass. Your fullback disqualifying himself before the Super Bowl because he was a drug addict. Drafting Akili Smith in the first round. Lamar doing this to you. Eli Apple Fritter getting roasted in the Super Bowl, and keep calling for them team-friendly deals. You'll be in cap hell when you overpay your woman-beaten wide receiver who won't go to practice. This franchise sucks so bad, you finished in last even with a winning record. So is Burrow actually good, or is he a product of Zach Taylor? Because if Burrow gets hurt again and Jake Browning puts up good numbers again, I know most of you Bengals fans will be pissed because you're not real Bengals fans, you're just Burrow slurpers. And that's okay, but you gotta own it, like how the Bengals own an 0-3 Super Bowl record. And now a bonus. It must be an Ohio thing to suck ass against the Steelers because the Bengals have been our side bitch along with the Browns. What a perfect metaphor, come to think of it. The Steelers have shattered your ACL and busted you during this rivalry. It's one thing for you waste of brown semen to call Ben a rapist, but it's a different thing when Ben has treated you like his accuser his whole career and even swept you with Trubisky and Rudolph. You are the closest thing to property without violating the 13th Amendment, and Skyline is overrated pig slop. The Cleveland Browns. I'd like to thank the Browns for giving my Steelers 2 wins most years for the last 50 years or so, and for passing on Big Ben. This hit is no longer the most famous in your history, this one is. Bonus, Deshaun Cosby's old team not only raped you on that trade, but also in the playoffs. Reminds me of another QB that was heavily troubled off the field that you dick rode. Too bad you threw away the actual QB who won you a playoff game in a quarter of a century away like a used condom. But I know you're sick of hearing about that, so I'll throw these at you that I know will trigger you. I'll be honest, I used to kind of feel bad about you, and seeing that your fans always sold out every home game with a terrible product for decades. But seeing all the shit that you talk just to get skull-crushed in the playoffs by an Ohio State rookie quarterback, need I remind you, the Ravens are the old you and won 2 Super Bowls with your owner, passed on so many good players for your quarterback graveyard, and now, similar to the Giants, you'll be getting PTSD, Pittsburgh traumatic stress disorder. Blowing a 24-7 lead to Tommy Maddox. This pass going through Corey Coleman's hands to complete your greatest accomplishment ever. Your first game back, you got obliterated at home by us for your worst home loss ever. You went 10-6 in 07 and still missed the playoffs because we won the division over you. And you've only won 7 friggin' games in Pittsburgh since 1970. Still not mad? Well, these will really make you lose your head like Dwayne Rudd. You fumbled your 2019 super team harder than Ernest Biner. Jim Brown was a massive piece of trash woman beater whose backup made all pros over him. And Nick Chubb is overrated since you won 10 games without him last year and made the playoffs. All these facts and jabs I've thrown at you will not make you feel better no matter how many bottles you throw at me. Philadelphia. The one-ring wonders from Philly still clinging on to that Super Bowl when no one on that team is even there anymore from 7 years ago. Eagle fans, let's do some calisthenics in the street with a horseshit protein shake to wash it down. The Philly special, if you will. Never won a ring with all those stacked teams in the 2000s with McNabb and Reed, and the guy who actually won you a ring you threw away like garbage for a glorified halfback, not before putting all the pressure on Carson Wentz, the NFL's version of Windows 98. Hey, speaking of that, don't forget that Jalen got benched for Tua in college. And you got small hands Kenny Mittens to back him up. This drop ought to make you mad. No, not anymore. What about this one? Neither of those trigger you anymore? How about starting the season 10-1 last year and then getting dementia mid-season like Joe Biden did, forgetting how to win football games and then getting curb stomped by the Buccaneers in the wildcard round? Now, I know you puke green goblins are pissed at this roast, but not all the snowballs and batteries you throw at me will cure it. No wonder this guy is the face of your fan base. Oh, you were expecting all these, didn't you? Well, let me just remind you that Wawa sucks and Sidney Crosby still owns y'all. The Pittsburgh Steelers. We finally get to my team, and if you think I'm gonna go easy on us, you're wrong. The most stubborn organization in the NFL doesn't get pull punches here. Russ is a massive cornball who's so cringy he legit made me deactivate my Twitter. He's also washed up, and I can't even say that about our scrub backup Justin Fields because being washed up implies that you were once good. Fields is who everyone thinks Lamar Jackson is, and his decision-making rivals Daniel Jones for who's worse. So our best QB right now is Kyle Allen. AB, Juju, and Claypool's BS doesn't trigger us anymore, but I know what does. The Steelers have 6 Super Bowl titles, that's tied for the most, and that's legit great until you realize we could easily be in the double digits. Once you get past us passing on Len Dawson, Johnny Unitas, and Dan Marino, all the home AFC championships we blew with Cowher, and Super Bowl 30, I'd say with those alone, we've let about 8 or 9 rings slip through our fingers. We won 2/3 of our rings in the 70s, and Ben got us 2 more, but once you factor in the Killer Bees only producing 3 playoff wins and losing 3 AFC championships to the Pats dynasty, it's even more unbelievable. So that's, what now, 12 or 13 rings we've pissed away? Damn, a franchise with 6 Lombardis has never sounded so underwhelming. How about these? Hines Ward is a dirty, cheap shot artist wide receiver who's not a Hall of Famer. Myles Garrett is better than TJ Watt. Super Bowl 40 was fixed for the bus to go out a champion in his hometown. We now have the longest playoff win drought in the AFC North, and this includes both the Browns and Bengals both winning playoff games in the last half decade and both snapping 25-plus year playoff win droughts. Oh, but don't worry, 9-8 is always good enough, though. At this point, I don't even know if even going after Tomlin even upsets Steeler fans because I know most fans don't even like him. He got handed over a Super Bowl team and hasn't done jack shit in 15 years. He's such a defensive guru, yet always craps his pants in the playoffs. Oh, how cute, Zone D, when you draft man-to-man. Where have we seen this before? Oh my god, it's like you've learned absolutely nothing at all. Probably because his coaching represents the colors on our logo that we hijacked from the AISI. Blue for blew an 11-0 start in 2020 just to get blown the F out at home by the Browns of all teams. Red for ridiculous waste of challenges and horrendous red zone play calling, and yellow for piss-poor preparation against competition. Damn, I just pissed myself off with this. I think I should kneel like Tebow and pray for forgiveness. Now, in case you forgot, I said at the beginning that even the Steelers would get it. If you didn't catch that, don't worry, Jesse James didn't either. Tennessee Titans, you went from surprising everyone to disappointing everyone in less than a calendar year. How about passing on J.J. Watt and Tyron Smith for Jake Locker? Man, that sucks right there. It's funny because Cleveland, Washington, and Chicago get most of the crap for QBs, but you guys really aren't much better because you haven't had a good QB since Steve McNair. Who's the best QB you've had since then? Ryan Tannehill? And he wasn't even all that good. You had Jeff Fisher for a Brazilian years, and this year in the AFC, you're going to get stomped on by everyone like Fat Albert Hainsworth in this clip right here. You blew one of the biggest divisional leads in NFL history, and while we're on the subject of choking, how about blowing a 35-3 lead in the playoffs as the Oilers? You wasted Warren Moon's entire career, and there's this missed TD call on you against us in the AFC Championship. Man, that's brutal, but not as brutal as being 1 yard short of your only championship. Oh boy, the Dallas Cowboys. This one's gonna be fun.
Well, who cares about a stupid star?
Gee, Patrick, it seems like you would care a lot about stupid stars, considering you are one.
Romo and Dak have been as ghost in big games as your fans do after every single loss. I simultaneously love and hate your delusional bag of bones owner as he continues to piss away all those great teams he builds up. He's also keeping Mike McCarthy, so you won't be winning anything anytime soon. You'd think the 90s happened yesterday with how much your fans talk about the triplets, but won't talk about these triplet losses to division rivals to decide your playoff hopes. How about them Cowboys? Well, How about T.O. doing this to your star? How about the 49ers consistently owning you? How about no divisional round wins since 96? How about consistently getting owned by the Packers as well? And how about these catches while Jackie Smith and Dez not getting the memo? Every single year, it's your year. You're going to win the Super Bowl. You're going to get over the hump. You're the best team in the NFL, and you comically fall on your face in the grand scheme of things. You are the Notre Dame Fighting Irish of the NFL. Yeah, that's gone stale by now, but here's what really triggers you. You weren't even originally chosen to be America's team. You only got it because we turned it down. You're America's second choice. Houston Texans, congrats on winning an awful division and a playoff game against, check notes, Joe Flacco. And while we're on the subject of Deshaun Watson's career, he didn't even want to play for you before the allegations. That's how awful your franchise is. 1 week later in said playoffs, you got destroyed by the Baltimore Ravens because, much like your logo, your playoff results never change. You wasted poor crippled J.J. Watt's entire career, but I know what triggers most Texans fans. Bill O'Brien is not only the best GM you've ever had, but he's also the best coach that you've ever had. I mean, damn. This is still the worst play call I've ever seen in my life, and is worse than any Matt Canada play call I've ever seen. And how long before Stephon Diggs is going to bitch in the locker room for not getting the ball? Week 3? Seattle Seahawks. Man, your fans claim to be called the Seattle Sound, but you didn't make a whole lot of sound before 2012. Speaking of that, do any of you bandies even know about these Seahawk greats right here, or that you used to play in the AFC? The Legion of Boom is the most overrated 2-year run of all time, and they blew a lot of late leads and only went to 2 NFC Conference Championship games because they drank a lot of roided protein shakes. How about Matt Hasselbeck saying this crap?
We want the ball, we're going to score.
A few moments later.
They're coming. The pass is picked off. Intercepted. Back the other way. The Green Bay Packers advance.
And then, of course, there's Super Bowl 40. Hey, instead of whining about the refs, Seahawks fans, how about you blame your defense for not stopping Willie Parker on this run? How about you stop us on 3rd down for a change? How about your O-line actually protects Hasselbeck from getting smelted by the steel curtain? How about you don't punt 6 times? And how about this nice little pick that killed a good drive for you that could have taken you the lead? Oh, and speaking of picks at crucial moments in a Super Bowl, Green Bay Packers. Is Green Bay really known as Title Town because of the 13 titles when A, 4 of them were named to you because there were no playoffs all the way back then, and then you have quote-unquote 4 Super Bowls when 2 of them were won before the merger and the other 2 happened in a 56-year span. So really, it seems kind of empty to be calling yourself Title Town. You're short on titles, really. And then the others were, well, because the league just had crappy competition. And now you exist merely to get your back blown out by the 49ers in the playoffs. There's the Fail Mary right here. Then there's this blown lead against the Seahawks in 2014. There was the Eagles converting this 4th and 26 on you. And really, you could have a lot more Super Bowls, you know, if you didn't let Aaron Rodgers down all this time. And Brett Favre didn't throw so many interceptions. Speaking of Favre, he flat out quit on you in 05, and then he joined a rival team to trigger you even more. And now you think Jordan Love is going to be your answer just because he blew the doors off the overrated Cowboys? Good luck. The Commanders. I conclude with the franchise with more team names than playoff wins since 1993, Washington. These fans now have to wash all the tons of bad memories out their mouths with Dan Snyder's ownership that has made them the model of embarrassment for 20 years. May as well change that W to an L because you haven't seen a whole lot of those over the years. Remember when you were heavy Super Bowl favorites just to get your backs blown out by the Raiders? But hey, at least that blowout just looks like a day at the beach compared to this one. Your franchise is such a disgrace that you let Jackson Mahomes, a registered sex offender, dance on Sean Taylor's number. Your wasted QBs is almost as bad as the Browns and are now giving a rookie one a baptism by fire. You know what it would cost for Daniels to break the cycle of your carousel? An arm and a leg.